Just a couple of things. Mitch was just leaving, but he said that a lot of people approached him about this dog walk. He said that they are going to be passing close to Manchester and to Liverpool. So if you want to find out more information, if you just on Instagram, just search Mitch Hutch. We'll leave that up there. And you can pick up everything that he does, and all of his activities are on there. So he's going to be talking about the dog walk on there. Underneath, Mr. Red Ted is Teddy's Instagram profile.
It's not hot red Ted.
No, which I told Katie was hot red Ted, and she came up with something completely different.
Don't say I'm doing it. Is my mic on? Yes. Okay, welcome back everybody. So before we get into the afternoon's activities, just like to give you just 5 minutes or so on your tables just to come back together. And I know there's been loads of engagements already, but check-ins can be really good for kind of building relationships. They're useful for using your team, so we always like to give you one here when we can. So this is just a nice little TV check-in. Have a chat about what you've been watching, what you've enjoyed. Take turns on your table, and you know, you'll go away with a full list of new things to go away and watch on Netflix. So I'll just give you 5 minutes for that, please. Something that's come through really strongly is the relationship. So, you know, Duncan spoke about the relationship, the therapeutic relationship, whereas Mitch called it something else. He called it, it was about what you do for yourself and what you do for others, so, almost, wasn't it? And it was in one of his kind of those 9 commandments, is it? I need to look into that a little bit more, but the relationship come through really strongly. And I think one thing to keep in mind is if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. So actually it's about that relationship, and it's about kind of building that relationship, which takes time, which takes trust, which is some of our next step cards, and it's about that consistency, isn't it, and meeting that person where they are. So I think it's like really important to kind of remember that. And the other thing, just kind of picking up on what's happened there with Pete and the young person he worked with, is this afternoon's all about play, okay? So this morning when I mentioned experiential, I did see a few worried faces around the room, but actually let's just call it play. That's what we're going to do. We've got an opportunity to play, okay? So that's what we're going to be doing this afternoon. So the purpose of the workshop is that we're going to look at 2 different activities, okay? So we've picked 2 of the life cards, and we've gone for choice and power, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But the reason why we've decided to create a from theory to practice activity using the life cards is it's one of the biggest questions that comes up in training, but also in our reflective spaces. People say, well, when they've kind of set their goal and they've picked a life area and they've set the, you know, the goal-based outcome is where they are now, they've picked their next steps, what does that mean? How do they go away and do that in between sessions? And that's the lovely kind of stuff that you can draw out through your therapeutic relationship. But what I think, and what Jenny and I talk about a lot, is actually there's a lot of really, really good evidence-based practice behind these next step ideas, and we need to use evidence-based practice because we want to do what works. So we've created these playful activities based on that idea, okay? So we hope that you're going to have a little bit of fun with this as well this afternoon, okay? So activity 1 is based on the choice card, okay? So I just looked up before because I just became a little bit interested while I was listening to Duncan about language, and it's something that always comes to mind from time to time. And what does choice mean? So its origins come from Germany and European origins, and it means to taste, to try. Okay, so we're inviting you to have a little taste of this afternoon. And in terms of power, the power card comes from that lovely idea of empowerment. Okay, and the origins are from Latin roots, like a lot of our English words are, and it means to step into power. So I'm inviting you to be playful and step into your power this afternoon, okay? So the choice card can demonstrate how when we know what we value or what matters in our life, we make better choices, which can then have a positive impact on our life areas, okay? So we're looking at ideas from what we call third wave CBT, okay? So third wave CBT, if you're not familiar with it, CBT is cognitive behavioural therapy. It began in, I want to say, around about the 1940s with a behavioural approach. So what we do impacts how we think, impacts how we feel. It was followed up with a cognitive approach. What we think impacts how we feel, impacts what we do. And more recently, over the last 20 and 30 years, there's been this third wave, this lovely third wave, which is what I'm most interested in. And that is kind of comes from the idea that actually we have a felt sense of how we feel in the world, and how we feel impacts how we think and then what we do, okay? So third wave CBTs are things like ACT, so if you've not heard of it before, acceptance and commitment therapy, go away and have a look at Russ Harris, okay? Loads of free resources online for you to look at. Russ is fantastic, he's one of the pioneers for ACT. And it also draws from solution-focused principles, so how we kind of plan ahead, okay? So the choice card is kind of based on things that have come from third wave CBT and being solution-focused, okay? And then the power card is set to help us develop self-compassion, strength, awareness, and kindness, okay? So we're taking ideas from compassion-focused therapy, which used to be seen as a third wave CBT, but now is more like a holistic model. Okay, so if you're interested in that, have a look at Paul Gilbert's work, the Compassionate Mind Foundation. Loads of free resources there for you to have a little look at. But also quite solution-focused and drawing from ACT as well. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing, and why we're doing it is to give you more ideas to go away and kind of think about how do we actually get down to the nitty-gritty and how do we achieve that goal by living our next steps, okay? Okay, so we're going to...
So sorry to interrupt, can I just double check?
Yeah.
I have to ask because I'll forget about how we're doing. So I completely understand everything you've just said. With regards to those two cards, is that the understanding just for the purpose of these exercises? Or is that supposedly what the children are supposed to use that card for?
So this activity is something that you could introduce with a child who you're working with. So we want you to experience it first, and then you can adapt it and be really playful. But the idea, like when you come out in our training, is that you experience it first. So we want you to use something when you're, I'm going to explain kind of the instructions of each activity, but when you're involved in the activity, you're going to be asked to work in pairs. So we're going to kind of help you make sure that everyone's working in twos as far as possible, threes if not, like we do on the training. But you're going to be either the facilitator or you're going to be yourself. So you're going to kind of have a go at the activity in terms of yourself. Does that kind of answer your question?
No, sorry, I might just be jumping ahead. Just when we do it from the training and we give the children, we've gone through all the stages and we get to the point where they choose what steps they're going to use to reach their GBO.
Yeah.
A child might choose choice.
Yes.
And they interpret choice for what they interpret, but then you're now saying that choice means...
No, what I'm saying is, yes.
Okay.
No, so choice is about knowing that there's not only one way, isn't it? It's about actually you can do this or you can do that. It's about looking, it's kind of problem solving really, isn't it? So this is one activity. So if you could introduce to say, actually, is choice about picking things that matter, that feel important? Okay. Well, we could have a go at this activity, okay? So, but if a child comes out with choices something completely different, this might not be the right activity, but it's just one way. There's so many ways. So, just to give you a little bit more information, we are considering creating a bank of resources based on the next step card, but they'll just be ever growing because there's so many ways to be playful with these cards. So this is just one way with the choice card and one way with the power.
Doing it wrong, that's all.
No, there's no way to do it wrong with the next step card. Just play about with it.
Yeah, just to add in there, absolutely. There is no right or wrong way. It's how you want to use them with the young person you're dealing with. But it originated, as Kate said, it's because people were saying from the reflective spaces, we know how to use the life cards, we know how to use the level cards.
Yeah.
What we don't know what to do is when we get to the step cards. What do they mean? How do we progress? How do we use the step cards to progress? So we're just giving you a couple of activities that might help.
Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to start off with the choice card. So you're going to have about maybe 20-25 minutes. We'll keep an eye on the room and just see how you're getting on with the activity. We're going to start off with the choice card first of all. That's the list of all the cards, and just to say that we've got some giant cards at the back. They're not that giant, but they're about A4, aren't they? Which we do sell. So if anyone's interested in buying a pack of bigger cards, which can be useful if you're working in groups or maybe if you're training, please see us at the end of the day. So they're all of the cards. We've got 16 step cards. We're going to now focus on the choice card for about 20 minutes. Okay. So is everyone just okay to, I know once we say activity, people get like ready to go, but if you're okay just to listen for a minute so that you know exactly what I'm going to ask you to do. Okay, so the choice card can help you have a little taste of, pause, notice what matters and choose the direction that you want to move towards. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to ask you to work in pairs as far as possible. One person will be the facilitator first, and then the other person is the participant, or just being yourself. And then you'll swap over, and we'll come and let you know when it's time to swap over, okay? But what you're going to do first of all is you're going to look at the values. So we've got some core values up there. We've also got worksheets on your tables, okay? So
these on every table you've got.
Okay, so you're going to look at your values. And everyone's got a worksheet, and then there's about 4 values lists on the table. They're not exhaustive lists because you could go on and on because values are what matters to you. But what we want you to do is kind of either write down or think about 5 values that feel important. If those on the list aren't the ones that feel most important to you, just write your own down, okay? Write down 5, and then just have a little think about it. It's a little bit of a kind of self-reflection before you go into your pairs. Okay, so you might want to consider, when does this value show up in my life? How do I know that this is something that matters to me? What difference does it make when I act on it? Okay, and then you will choose one value out of your 5 to focus on. And you might want to link it to an area of your life, the life cards, for instance. Just an area that comes to mind of your life. And you could maybe brainstorm and think about how that value could guide your future actions towards a better quality of life, okay? So I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to do a very short demonstration with Jenny, if that's okay, Jenny. You don't mind, do you? Just so that to make sure that people really know what we're doing with this activity, okay? So, Jenny, I'd just like you to maybe pick one. It might be up there, or it might be something different. One value that feels really important to you.
Kindness.
Kindness, okay. And how does kindness show up in your life?
I think in every aspect of my life, kindness every day when you're at work, hopefully, whether you're at home, all the time. And it's sort of receiving kindness as well as imparting kindness.
Yeah. So it's really important. I can see that it feels important just by hearing the way you're talking about it. So what difference does it make to you when you act on that value?
It makes me feel better about myself. It's a bit selfish, but it does. I mean, I hope it would make other people feel better if I'm being kind, but it would also make me feel better if I'm being kind.
Justifiably selfish is a nice way to think about it, because we do all need to, I think that the idea that we'll all help us means that we get something back from the work that we give. So yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, it must reduce anxiety and all sorts of things.
Yeah. What about when that value's not present? How does that impact on you?
Definitely negatively. If people are unkind, obviously that's very visible. But if people just aren't kind, if they are not thoughtful, then I think it can impact on your everything, really, your whole day, and much longer than that. If people are very unkind, then it can become a bit, you just think about that all the time rather than what's going on.
Yeah, so I know this is longer than what we practiced.
This is new.
Sorry, just something I was thinking. I was just wondering about how, you know, that value is really important to you and how you might sense it or notice it when it's not being played out by other people who might not have that value, but it is something you value. That must be hard.
Yeah. How would I feel when the people are being kind?
Yeah, or being unkind.
Alright.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately we do all experience that, so yeah.
And I was a little bit unkind there, making you do more. But well done, Jenny. Jenny, have a clap. I'm going to give you about 20 minutes on your table, so maybe take 10 minutes each and then swap over, and we'll be popping round just checking that you're swapping over. You've all got a worksheet that kind of talks through the instructions if you want to just have a little read of it, and off you go.
So what we're going to do now is move on to the second activity.
Yes. Okay. So thanks very much for all your engagement in that activity. We'll just take a moment just to close that activity down before we move into the next one, okay? Because, you know, obviously talking about things that matter, doesn't it, you know? And so that kind of stuff stays with you. And I know when Jenny and I practiced this a couple of weeks ago, and then I met her the following week for a meeting for our planning, you'd really carried on thinking about the importance of kindness in your life, hadn't you? So, you know, these things kind of, we continue to process outside of the sessions, and that's the same for the young people and adults who we work with as well. And one of the things that I really love about Next Step cards, generally it's used as an ongoing intervention. Now you can use it as part of your assessment, but what I would say is never set a goal with someone if you're not going to review it, because then they potentially they may feel unheard because you've set a goal and you've not come back to help think about checking in, how did that go, okay? So if you're setting a goal with someone and you're using that kind of goal-based outcome, then you really need to be checking back in to see how that's going, because that's kind of the empowerment and the support, okay? But in this activity, you use the choice card to help each other pause, notice, have a little taste of what matters, and identify a small, realistic step. What you've hopefully experienced is how a simple, value-based conversation can help someone clarify their direction and choose a step that feels doable for them. So it's kind of really meaningful for that person in front of you, whoever that is. These cards are a really good coaching tool as well, so if you've not used them for a while, have a go with a team member, just be playful. Okay, so while the choice card helps you to consider what matters, the power card can help you draw on your strengths, encouragement and your inner resources that make taking that next step possible, okay, because we want to feel that power, don't we? I just loved hearing Mitch this morning talking about how he turns adversity into power, okay, and that's a really difficult thing to do, isn't it? I loved how he mentioned failure. It's one of my favourite topics to talk about, because failure often leads to the biggest opportunity when we really kind of own that failure and we're not afraid of it. Okay, but now we're going to move on to the power card. What? Okay, so I'm going to invite you to take part in a discovery writing activity, okay? So writing can be really powerful and really empowering for us. So you're going to have an opportunity to explore how compassion, confidence and personal strengths can support you to work towards the power card as your next step, whatever that might be, okay? So I'll give you the instructions first, and then you're just going to go back into your pairs or your threes, and you're going to again take turns to have a go at this activity, okay? It is a writing activity. If writing is a barrier, there are adaptations that you can make. Instead of writing as a long piece of writing, you can bullet point things. or you can speak into our phones are so clever these days, aren't they? So if writing's a barrier, you can get a person to speak into the notes in the phone as well, okay, or ChatGPT. It's fantastic, isn't it? If you subscribe for £20 a month, honestly, the things it can do for you. Okay, just a little plug. This event is not sponsored by ChatGPT.
I wish.
But it's changed my life, it really has. As a dyslexic adult, being able to kind of speak into things instead of writing is really helpful. Anyway, I digress. Okay, so this is going to be an opportunity for you to write a letter to your future self. Okay, so I want you to write from the part of you that's wise and compassionate. I want you to offer yourself encouragement, kindness, and a belief in your potential. You could be writing to yourself next week, next year, in 5 years' time. You decide, you can choose that. You can write about the value or the choice, the thing that mattered that you talked about in activity 1 if you choose to. Or you can take inspiration from any of our other next steps, any next step that you choose. But the most important thing is that we want you to empower, we want you to step into your power, encourage yourself, recognise your strengths and support that next small step, whatever that is, whatever your Everest is. Okay. The activity is designed to strengthen compassion, confidence and that personal agency. So you're going to again have 2 rounds. So first of all, Partner A can facilitate, Partner B writes a compassionate letter, so just words of encouragement to kind of help them on their way. If it feels difficult, just start by jotting down words. You can also draw a picture if you really don't want to write words on a page. Have a doodle, draw a picture, a poem, a shopping list of words. You choose how you might need to adapt it. So you'll get about 5 minutes for the activity and then just have a conversation before you swap, and then do the same thing again, and then have a conversation just for that reflection before you stop. Okay, if you feel brave enough, you can read the letter to your partner. Okay, you don't have to do that, but you're invited to if you feel brave enough to do that. It can be really powerful when we hear our own words spoken. Okay, it can feel quite moving to do that. So again, what we're going to do is give you probably, let's have a look, about 15 minutes in total for this activity, and then we'll come back and we'll have a reflection of the whole workshop before we move into closing the day. And we're quite hopeful that we might get you out slightly before 3 o'clock today as well. So that's always good, isn't it? Does everybody understand those instructions? Does that feel okay? Thanks very much, everybody, okay, to taking part in that activity. Sometimes the writing activity can feel harder, sometimes the talking activity can feel harder, and I think it's really good that we feel what the people who we're working with, what we're asking them to feel, so that's the purpose of these activities. I prefer talking, you prefer writing, and that's what we learned about each other when we were having a little go at this activity a couple of weeks ago. Okay, and if you wanted to, you could use this letter as the beginning of the start of an empowerment journal for yourself. A little place to return to when you need reassurance, motivation, hope or a reminder of what matters. And for the young people and adults we support, this type of writing can be a powerful way to build self-belief and strengthen their sense of agency. And I've used this only recently in the last week with an adult who I work with, who's 57. And I just got her to write 5 words down that felt really hopeful, and the idea was that she could come back to them whenever she needed to and she could say them out loud. Okay, so I'll see her again next week and see how that's gone on, but she needed a lot of encouragement to be able to just find those 5 words, but we spent the time and we got them. Okay. So what we hope you take away is that the power card isn't just about identifying strengths, it's also about activating them. So writing from a compassionate voice helps people notice what they already have within them to move forward, okay? Especially when things feel hard. So as we draw this workshop to a close, just taking a moment to reflect on what we've done and why. So what we said earlier was that often people will say to us, how do we help young people or adults actually practice their chosen step in their daily life? And sometimes when we go into a session, whether it's a planning session, in your job role, or whether we just have pulled the cards out because we're feeling stuck with the person in front of us, sometimes it's useful to have backup activities in mind that might be helpful. And this is, you know, these being just one each for those cards. Initially we wanted to do about 6 activities and we were like, wow, that's going to be too much. So that's just a little taster for you, okay. And we explore these type of things and we be really playful in our reflective spaces. So if you've not had a chance to try and jump on the one in January. And we just wanted to give you some practical answers to those questions. So they were designed to help you experience what real world application can look like. So it's that theory to practice, okay? And we hope you've enjoyed it. And as we say, you might go away and carry on thinking about it. You might feel tired. It might bring things up for you. So just be mindful and notice what you feel and be kind to yourself after today. Okay. So, sorry Jenny, yeah, I lose track and forgotten about the slides, okay. So, what we're going to do now is, just to bring the whole day to a close, I'm just going to do a closing reflection for you and take you through a little bit of a journey of the day, okay? So I'd like to invite you to just kind of sit comfortably in your chairs, 2 feet on the floor, if that's okay. You might want to put your hands on your legs or kind of on your stomach or just down wherever feels most comfortable for you. And I'd like to invite you, if you feel comfortable, to close your eyes for a moment. You don't have to, but if you don't choose to, that's fine. You might want to just lower your gaze while I take you through this closing reflection from our day that we've spent together. Okay. So today has brought us together, a chance to pause, to step away from the busyness of everyday life, and to connect, learn, and share with one another. We're all here because we care about growth, healing and connection. Through the keynotes, the case study, or not a case study as Pete put it, workshops and all our conversations, we've explored how the Next Step cards can nurture agency, empathy, strength and hope. We've celebrated the courage, compassion and creativity that shapes everyday practice. And we've been reminded that meaningful change often begins with one small, value-based step. We were inspired by Mitch, whose extraordinary journey to Everest shows how purpose, resilience, and tiny, consistent actions lead us to summits of our own, when we remember anything is possible. We heard from Duncan Law. We were reminded of the power of goals and goal-based outcomes, how clear collaborative aim setting creates the agency we seek to nurture. And that's what the Next Step cards invite us to do, to pause, notice what matters, and to ask, what's the next step I can take? A simple question, but powerful. As we've explored today, the Next Step cards create space for transformation. Whether we're helping someone clarify their values, right from their compassionate self, or rediscover a sense of possibility, we're supporting the same movement, from reflection to empowerment. Our work is grounded in evidence, solution-focused practice, third wave CBT, person-centred approaches, whichever evidence base we want to pin it to, and the goal-based outcome framework shared by Duncan. But it's also just really grounded in heart. At its core, it's relational. Each conversation, each question, each moment of listening is an act of care. And the same is true for us. When we create safety and space for reflection, we plant seeds of courage in others and in ourselves. So as we close today, you might ask yourself, what small value-based step will I take next in my practice? What compassionate voice will guide me as I do this? And how can I use these cards and these ideas to help others to do the same? So the work doesn't end here, it grows. In the everyday moments when you choose curiosity over certainty, compassion over criticism, and reflection over reaction. Every time we connect, reflect, and act with intention, we help rewrite the story for the young people and the adults we serve, but also for ourselves. So here's to the next step, to choosing courage, kindness, and connection, to the power of small actions taken with heart. To close, a poem that captures what we know to be true. The children and the adults who support them grow in the emotional climate around us. So this is a poem you may know. It's one of my favourites. Children Learn What They Live by Dorothy Law Nolt. If children live with criticism, they learn to condemn. If children live with hostility, they learn to fight. If children live with ridicule, they learn to be shy. If children live with shame, they learn to feel guilty. If children live with tolerance, they learn to be patient. If children live with encouragement, they learn confidence. If children live with praise, they learn to appreciate. If children live with fairness, they learn justice. If children live with security, they learn to have faith. If children live with approval, they learn to like themselves. If children live with acceptance and friendship, they learn to find love in the world. So thank you for listening. And here's to those small relational moments, the conversations, the reflections, and the next steps that we'll take. So I'm going to invite you, when you're ready, just to come back as we draw our Better Practice event to a close, if that's okay. So as we close the day, I just want to take a moment to say thank you, firstly to ourselves, who've all showed up here today and we've really engaged, and to our colleagues on the table, because there's been some really lovely, compassionate conversations going on around the room, to all our speakers, to everyone who's helped put together this day, either front of house or behind the scenes, or everyone who's here in the room as our helpers and involved. Also to Fiona, who's our clinical director, who lots of you will know, but couldn't be here today. And also just the biggest thank you to Jenny. Jenny does everything for us. Thank you very much.